In a tense parking lot confrontation, officers closed in on a black woman, their words sharp with bias, until her two military-trained dogs stepped forward, silencing their aggression and shifting the power in an instant. Talia Brooks stood in the parking lot of a convenience store, her hands steady as she held the leashes of her two German shepherds, Titan and Zara. At 36, Talia was a military veteran, a former K-9 handler who'd served 2 tours overseas, training dogs for high-stakes missions. Now, back in her hometown in Georgia, she worked as a civilian dog trainer, her life quieter but no less disciplined. That evening, she'd stopped at the store to grab a few things after a long day, her dogs waiting calmly by her side, their training evident in their alert but controlled demeanor. It was just after 7 p.m., the lot sparsely lit, with only a few cars parked nearby. Talia had just loaded her groceries into her SUV when 2 police officers approached, their flashlights cutting through the dusk. They were responding to a call from the store clerk who'd reported suspicious activity involving a black woman with dogs. The officers, both white men in their 40s, moved with a purpose that felt more confrontational than routine. Officer Grant, the taller of the two, spoke first, his voice sharp. "Ma'am, we need to see your ID. Now." Talia turned, her posture calm but firm, her dogs sitting attentively at her feet. "Can I ask what this is about?" she said, her tone even. Grant's eyes narrowed, his hand resting on his holster. "We got a call about someone loitering. You fit the description. ID now." His partner, Officer Mills, stepped closer, his flashlight aimed at Talia's face, the beam harsh and unnecessary. "Let's make this quick," he added, his voice carrying a hint of impatience. Talia reached into her jacket pocket, moving slowly to avoid escalating things. She handed over her driver's license, her eyes meeting Grant's without flinching. "I was just getting groceries," she said. "I've been here maybe 10 minutes. Grant took the ID, glancing at it briefly before passing it to Mills. "Yeah, well, we'll decide what's going on here," Mills said, his tone dismissive. He muttered something to Grant, too low for Talia to hear, but the smirk on his face suggested it wasn't professional. Titan, the larger of the 2 dogs, shifted slightly, his ears perking up. Zara, smaller but no less alert, let out a low whine, sensing the tension. Talia tightened her grip on their leashes, her voice calm as she spoke to them. "Easy, both of you." The dogs settled instantly, their training overriding their instincts. But the officers noticed, and Grant's hand moved closer to his weapon. "Control those dogs, ma'am," he snapped. "We don't need any trouble." "There's no trouble," Talia said, her voice steady. "They're trained. They won't move unless I tell them to." She stood her ground, her military background evident in her composure. She'd faced worse. Hostile checkpoints, high-pressure missions. 2 officers in a parking lot didn't intimidate her, but their tone, the way they closed in, set her on edge. She knew this wasn't just about a call from the clerk. She'd felt this kind of scrutiny before, the kind that came with being a black woman in a town where some assumed she didn't belong. Mills stepped closer, his flashlight still in her face. "You got anything in that car we should know about?" he asked, his voice laced with suspicion. "Weapons, drugs, anything like that?" Talia's jaw tightened, but she kept her tone level. "Just groceries. You're welcome to check." She gestured to the SUV, where a bag of produce and a case of water sat in plain view. Grant shook his head, his smirk matching Mills. "We'll get to that. First, let's talk about why you're out here with those dogs. They look dangerous." "They're not dangerous," Talia said. "They're military-trained working dogs. I'm a K-9 handler, retired Army. They're under my control." She kept her voice calm, but the officer's body language, hands on holsters, closing the distance, told her they weren't listening. Mills leaned in, his voice dropping. "You don't get to tell us how to do our job. Step away from the vehicle and keep those dogs back." Talia complied, stepping to the side, her dogs moving with her in perfect sync. But as she did, Grant reached for her arm, his grip unnecessarily tight. "Move faster," he said, his tone sharp. That's when Titan let out a low growl, his body tensing. Zara mirrored him, her eyes locked on Grant. Talia's voice cut through the moment, firm and commanding. "Titan, Zara, stand down." The dogs obeyed instantly, but the growl had shifted the dynamic. Grant released her arm, stepping back, his hand now on his gun. "You better keep those animals in check, or we'll have a problem," he said, his voice rising. The situation was escalating, and Talia knew it. She'd seen bias before, felt it in the way people looked at her, the assumptions they made. But this was different. Two armed officers, their aggression fueled by something more than a vague call from a clerk. She kept her hands visible, her voice steady. "Officers, I'm not resisting. I'm cooperating. Let's de-escalate this." But Mills wasn't having it. He moved to her other side, effectively boxing her in against the SUV. "We'll decide when this is de-escalated," he said, his tone mocking. "You don't call the shots here." Before Talia could respond, a third figure approached from across the parking lot, a man in civilian clothes, his stride purposeful. It was Lieutenant Colonel James Carter, a base commander from the nearby military installation where Talia occasionally consulted on K-9 training. He'd been in the store, picking up coffee, when he overheard the clerk's call to the police and saw Talia through the window. He knew her reputation, her service, her skill with dogs. Now, as he neared, his voice carried authority. "What's going on here?" he demanded, his eyes scanning the officers. Grant turned, startled, but his posture didn't soften. "Sir, this is a police matter. Please step back." Carter didn't move. He looked at Talia, then at the dogs, who were now sitting, their eyes fixed on her for commands. "Ms. Brooks," Carter said, addressing her directly. "You all right?" Talia nodded, her voice calm. "Yes, sir. Just a misunderstanding." Carter's gaze shifted to the officers, his expression hardening. "Doesn't look like a misunderstanding to me." Mills bristled, stepping forward. "We're handling a suspicious person call, sir. These dogs are a potential threat." Carter's eyes narrowed. "Those dogs are military trained, and Ms. Brooks is a decorated veteran. You're not handling anything, you're harassing her." His voice was calm but carried a weight that made both officers pause. Grant opened his mouth to argue, but Carter cut him off. "Step back. Now." That's when Titan and Zara moved. On Talia's subtle signal, a slight hand gesture, they stepped forward, positioning themselves between her and the officers. They didn't growl, didn't bark, just stood, their presence imposing, their training evident in their disciplined stance. Grant and Mills froze, their hands still near their weapons, but their confidence visibly shaken. The dog's eyes locked onto them, unwavering, a silent warning that needed no words. Carter spoke again, his voice like steel. "Ms. Brooks is a contractor with my unit. Those dogs have more training than most officers I know, and they're under her command. You're out of line. Stand down." The officers hesitated, their eyes darting between Carter, Talia, and the dogs. Finally, Grant lowered his hand from his holster, stepping back. Mills followed, his face flushed with frustration but no longer aggressive. Talia spoke softly to her dogs. "Titan, Zara, at ease." They relaxed instantly, sitting back down, their alertness undiminished, but their threat level dialed back. Carter turned to Talia. "You good to go?" She nodded, picking up her ID from where Grant had set it on the SUV's hood. "Yes, sir. Thank you." Carter looked at the officers one last time. "Next time, check someone's credentials before you escalate. You're lucky those dogs listened to her." He turned and walked back to his truck, leaving the officers in stunned silence. Talia loaded her dogs into the SUV, their movements fluid and obedient. She drove away, her heart rate steady, her mind already moving past the encounter. She'd faced worse in her military career, situations where split-second decisions meant life or death. This was just a moment, one she'd handled with the same calm she'd brought to every mission. But for the officers, it was a wake-up call. They'd misjudged her, assumed she was just another civilian, and their bias had nearly cost them. The store clerk, who'd watched the whole thing from the doorway, later told co-workers about the woman with the dogs who'd shut down two cops without raising her voice. The story spread through the town, amplified by locals who'd seen the officers back off, by Carter's commanding presence, by the dogs who'd stood like sentinels. Grant and Mills faced an internal review, their actions caught on the store's security camera, which showed their aggressive posture and Talia's restraint. The footage made its way online, sparking debates about policing and prejudice. Talia didn't seek the attention. She went back to her work, training dogs for law enforcement and private clients, her days filled with drills and commands. Titan and Zara remained her partners, their loyalty unwavering, their skills a testament to her expertise. The incident in the parking lot became a story told in the community, a reminder that appearances could deceive, that strength didn't always shout. For Talia, it was just another day, another moment where her training, her dogs, and her resolve had carried her through.